everyone, how's it going? Welcome to this installment of Mike's Vehicle Vlogs, and I want to thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to do a vlog from the desk today. This probably isn't going to be very long, but it's, I guess, more of an update based on a recent question that I had actually gotten on one of my recent videos. I don't remember exactly which one it was at this point in time, but I figured since the question was asked, this would probably be, kind of an interesting thing to just briefly talk about in today's video. And that is simply the question of whether I enjoy working on cars after really making this into, a career. Very good question indeed. It's kind of funny because I've actually, from time to time, I will, kind of watch older videos and such that I've done, from years back. And especially, watching the videos where, for instance, pretty much the entire Aztec rebuild project, it's really funny to just kind of look back at that, and me not having any experience working on cars at all, other than doing like oil changes, and stuff like that, but actually getting in and tearing, an engine apart and replacing gaskets and, other various fluids, suspension parts, even a little bit of electrical stuff here and there. I mean, it's really bizarre to watch that far back, and just kind of knowing that's kind of where this whole journey began was with that Aztec. To answer the question though, just to get it out of the way, yes, I still really enjoy this decision that I've made as far as making this a career. I have technically been in the shop now for like 3 years, 3.5-ish, when I first got hired part-time at the Ford dealership that I worked at. I was working part-time there while I was going to school for this career change. So I got hired at the dealership shop for the Ford dealership, and I think I was either 4 or 5 months into the automotive program for the tech school that I went to. So yeah, I have actually been doing stuff with cars, pretty much for like 3.5 years now, and I still love it. Now, there are things that I think a lot of people, don't really understand. I did go to school for this. I completed I think it was 15-month program, got an associate's degree in automotive technology. I graduated that program in February of 2021. So at that point in time, I went full-time at the Ford dealership. And then in actually February of 22, I decided to leave that dealership, and I went to a Honda dealership, which I am still currently working at, and might I say, I really do enjoy it. But the fact that, I have an associate's degree and such, that doesn't necessarily mean that I know everything. I still, don't know everything, and, I think the thing about the program is it's definitely nice to have. Like, having the degree is definitely a nice thing to have. But I've been told by many people, that I didn't necessarily have to go to school to get the job of where I am now. I don't necessarily believe that, though. I really don't. When I started at the Ford dealership, there were guys there who started off as, simple lube techs, and technically that's what I was for the majority of my time at Ford. Was just a lube tech. But anybody, if you have some sort of basic knowledge and a desire to actually work, you know, and you're careful with what you do and stuff, you probably could just, get, a lube tech job. They'll train you and stuff, in most cases, depending on where you go. But, I don't know. I really feel like that isn't necessarily a guarantee, though. When I actually got hired at the Ford dealership, I did not touch a single car for like a month, and I was very excited to start that job. Especially working at a Ford dealership, leaving another Ford dealership. I actually kind of knew a bit about Fords, because of the fact that at the time I did have two of them. I still have the one, obviously, but I had two of them. I had one before that, so I mean, I had Fords long enough now to kind of understand certain things, that they got going on and whatnot. But I also worked at, another Ford dealership before I decided to do all this stuff, and I was, taking pictures, of cars and such. I kind of knew my way around a car, basically, is what I'm saying. And the, I would see what the guys at the one dealership, what they had to go through, and sometimes, if it looked like they were doing something interesting, I would kind of like, pop over, and they would tell me what's going on and kind of show me things here and there, and that kind of also helped pique my interest a little bit. But when I got hired to actually work in the service department of, the Ford dealership that I left, I guess, I didn't get to do anything on one car, for about a month. They pretty much had me just doing shop cleaning and just stuff like that. And I'm gonna be quite honest, it started to kind of put me off a little bit, because that really wasn't what I was there to do. I was there to work on cars and to start learning and such, but it took, like I said, about a month for them to finally, team me up with somebody who worked there and kind of start going through the motions of working on cars and such. Now, had that situation been different, maybe if I had already had my degree, maybe it could possibly, I probably wouldn't have had to do any of the janitorial stuff, but it is what it is. And I just had to keep telling myself it's not going to stay like this forever, and luckily it didn't. But in the case of going to Honda, when I applied for the Honda dealership position and I had my interview and such, I think having the degree at that point in time is really what made the difference. I think that kind of helped me get hired on the spot. Technically, I got hired on the spot. Well, no, I didn't get hired on the spot. I got hired on the spot for Honda, and then another dealership that same day interviewed me, and they called me later and told me they wanted me to. So I got hired for two service jobs, in one day. And I think I made a whole vlog about that when this whole change started happening. But I picked Honda because I had a better gut feeling about going with the Honda dealership, just from the interview, and I thought the interview went really well, and I really liked the environment of the shop, and it seemed like it was going to be a better fit for me. And so far, I am not wrong on that. So I think having the degree and getting hired, at Honda definitely, made it easier to get hired. Having at least, a year and a half ish of, doing the lube tech stuff, and I'm kind of like, I think I'm just kind of rambling on now, but it definitely helped, I believe. And not only, did I want to get that just to, kind of help get my foot in the door at any kind of service center, really. But I mean, I did it for me. Um, I have always had the passion for cars. I've had the desire for many, many years to learn more. Um, that's kind of, when I bought the Aztec, and, it needed so much work. I mean, I ended up doing a lot more work to that thing than I had originally bargained for when I bought it. But I took it a step at a time. I did have, help along the way. But for the most part, I mean, a lot of that was done pretty much by myself. And I just kind of had to gather the resources that I could find on certain subjects, on certain topics, and just kind of run with it from there. And for the most part, I mean, that thing was brought home on a trailer. Couldn't drive it at all. And by the time that I was done fixing it up, I had it on the road, and I drove it for, I forget now, like 9 months before I regretfully ended up selling it. But yeah, it was after I'd gotten that car done and back on the road. I felt good. It put a nice, it just made me feel good to know that I successfully got that car running and driving again. And I used it as a daily driver on a lot of days, even though I didn't intend to. But I mean, for the most part, drove the heck out of that thing before I ended up giving it up. And I was just proud of it. And that's what made me really start to consider, doing this as a full-time career. And yeah, I definitely have no regrets at this time. I know I've said before that there are a lot of people who may say that, you're going to get sick of it, Working on a car that is not your own is a lot different than working on a car that is yours. Not only that, the entire, working in a shop for somebody compared to working here at the house is also kind of a different, thing too. I work with a lot of people, and even when I worked at Ford, most of the people who actually work in the car business, I think a lot of them really don't care for cars that much. I work with people who, they have a lot of different interests, and working on cars really isn't one of them. But they're the type of people who, it's what they're good at. They know the stuff, and that's pretty much why they're there, is because, they pretty much are there for the paycheck, which is understandable, as any job, for the most part, For me, though, I don't know. I feel like I still have the right mentality for this type of job, because I sincerely have always liked, anything with cars. I'm still very intrigued to learn more each day, and I think that's the kind of mentality that you need, obviously, to make the job enjoyable. Not saying that every day is a walk in the park, because there are days where, you just want to come home because you've had it. But nonetheless, I mean, I just really enjoy doing what I'm doing. I still have a positive attitude toward this career choice of mine. The Honda dealership, going into Honda is not just, I was presented with more work other than oil changes. Sometimes I've done a lot more in-depth work. I've done a lot of accessory installs. I do a lot of recalls. I'm tearing the inside of a Honda Pilot, Passport, or Odyssey apart at least once a day, to do a wiring recall that they have for certain communication systems in the car. Um, some of the guys in the shop, they kind of, scoff at that because they find it annoying to have to take, the car apart. Me, I look forward to it. I'm like, yeah, I got this. I just enjoy doing it. That's just my mentality. And, again, not saying that there's anything wrong with the way the other guys think. I mean, everybody's different. But I really do like it. I like it a lot. And the only thing I can keep doing at this point is to just keep learning, keep trying to, make my advancements within, at this point, the Honda name. And just hopefully, the goal is the same goal that I had when I originally started to go into this. And that is, I just want to be the best that I can be at this profession. And that's why, watching all these old vlogs where, I did stuff with the tech and even here and there in the Grand Am, it's like, I got through that. I didn't really know a whole lot. I still, again, I don't know everything. The courses, as I think, starting to say, that the courses, when you go to school for that kind of thing, the courses will definitely give you the basics of what you need to know. A lot of it, though, is definitely more hands-on and time. The more that you see something, you'll obviously recognize it more. A certain process, or like in this case with these Honda FACRA connectors is what they're called. I can pretty much tear apart the interior of any three of the vehicles that have those systems and those recalls. I could take those apart in my sleep at this point. So you get better at it, in time. And I'm just still looking forward to it. So like I said, I'm 3.5 years into the field, and I have no regrets. I also love the fact that, in a way, it doesn't necessarily feel like a job, because for one, I enjoy it. For two, you're not necessarily tied down to, or at least I don't feel like I'm tied down to like a desk or anything. I've got my own workspace. I've got my toolboxes. I've got a workbench, and I have my own little world there, in the shop, and that also feels good to have. I like being able to know that I have my own space, and it's just in a way, it's just, you got that kind of freedom, I guess. That's one thing that I like about it. Coming from many years of working in retail, I don't miss that at all. I, for years, made it work, and eventually, mentally, it took a toll on me. And that is kind of when I decided, back then anyway, to maybe find a job where I'm more behind the scenes, instead of dealing with the public up front. And that's another thing that I like about this particular career is I don't necessarily have to deal with the customers up front. I wouldn't necessarily mind, like if it was my own business, my own shop, but it's also a different type of business. When you work in retail, I feel like the people are different. The people who you engage with on a day-to-day basis, it's a different type of attitude, I think. It's kind of hard for me to explain, I think, but that's just the way that I've always looked at it. I'm really happy with the decisions that I've made, and I hope as time goes on, my mentality doesn't really change. Like I said, I know every day is not a walk in the park. I know there's going to be, more stress more, complicated jobs in the future. That's a given. But as long as you keep with the positive mentality, remember why you're doing this. Get through it. You can use that with anything. You can use that mentality on anything. And yeah, I love it, and that was a good question. It, like I said, made for an interesting video, and for anybody who's interested in going into this field, again, you got to have the right mentality to do it, but also you also have to remember that it's not it's not easy. But if you have the right mentality, you can make it happen. Working part-time after having a full-time job for a long time, cutting back on your expenses, going to school, and then going to work straight after and such. I mean, it took a toll for 15 months, especially because I had to deal with COVID. Our school got shut down for COVID when COVID first came, and we didn't know what was going to happen. But luckily, the school had a plan to keep us learning here at home. We did all the lecture stuff here at home. Then once we were able to go back to the lab, it was all lab work for a certain amount of time until our next quarter would come up, and then we would go back to normal. And but yeah, so I had to deal with that. Even that was. But anyway, yeah, I love what I do. I can only hope in time I continue to grow and get better with each day, and maybe one day I will have my own shop. That would be really nice. Maybe one day I'll have a garage here in my house. I don't know. That would be nice too. But that's all that I've got for today. So if you did enjoy this, thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. I want to thank you again so much for watching. Take care.